300 foreign medical graduates who are aspiring to go and work in the US are in massive, massive trouble. But the way this happened, it can honestly happen to anyone and everyone at all. And I seriously think that there are so many deep lessons to learn from the story. If you really want to know what happened and you want to know the lessons that personally I have learned from this news, stay tuned. Honestly, this thing happened earlier this year, about 2 months ago. I honestly didn't think my audience would be interested in this topic. But just last week, somebody asked in the comment section that I talk about it. So here you are. So this is what happened. So as you all know, if you are a foreign trained personnel and then you want to go into another country to practice, usually that other country will require that you prove that you are indeed what you say you are by writing certain exams, and then you can qualify to practice whatever in that country. For instance, I am a nurse and I was trained in Ghana. To enable me to work in the UK, as I'm doing now, I had to prove that I was indeed a nurse. There were certain documentations and certificates I had to submit. And then I also had to take an exam. So for nurses who want to practice in the UK, their exams, you need to write an English exam to prove that you are proficient in English. That's the IELTS or the OET. You have to write the CBT, which is a multiple choice exam that you do in your home country. And then when you finally get in the UK, there's a practical exam known as the OSCE that you have to take. In the same vein, if you are a foreign medical graduate, trained, you did your medical school wherever in the world, and you want to go and practice in the US, obviously the land of opportunity, you'd have to write an exam, a popular exam known as the USMLE. And this USMLE is in 3 different steps. Guys, this is intense. Would you believe that step 1 alone cost about $1,000, step 2 cost about $1,000, step 3 cost about $900, and step 1 alone takes about 8 hours with about 280 multiple choice questions. Step 2 is also about 9 hours long, same multiple choice. And step 3 takes 2 days. Hey. So it is no joke, it's massive. And people really sometimes need to practice and learn and study for months before they will take this exam and pass. It's such a big deal. So respect everyone who's passed. But this is where the problem started. The board that regulates this whole exam, the medical council in the US, let me put it like that, they got some anonymous tips that there were people in certain countries that were cheating in this exam. And it's very weird because how can they cheat? I mean, there are cameras there and then they do a lot of checks. You'd have to complete a registration form, they'll do your ID checks. I'm sure there are cameras at the exam tech center, and then these cameras are monitoring unusual behavior as you are taking the exam. They monitor the time that you use to answer each question. Aside that as well, your medical school that you attended should be listed on the World Directory of Medical Schools. So it's not even every graduate from any medical school at all that even qualifies. So it's like there's a lot of scrutiny. So then when they had the anonymous tests, there are people in certain countries that are cheating. I mean, it was quite strange. And these are the countries that were mentioned: Jordan, Nepal, Pakistan, India. They decided to do their investigations, obviously, and they realized that foreign medical graduates from Nepal, they had the highest scores in the entire world. I mean, that could mean that they are smart, right? They decided to do more investigation into Nepal. And this is where everything went left. So apparently there's a big WhatsApp group in Nepal where they share past questions from this exam. Is that wrong? Yes, it is. The thing is, obviously the board that regulates this exam or conducts this exam, there's no way that they can set questions every single day. People are taking this exam almost every time, so frequently. They have a pool of questions that they recycle. And apparently in this WhatsApp group, there's a document that is shared in the WhatsApp group with about 1,000 pages. And this document, obviously 1,000 pages, you can only imagine the content it has. This document was popularly referred to as Savior in the WhatsApp group. Savior. Obviously because it's saving them the struggle and the hustle to help them pass the USMLE exam and become doctors in the US. So they think that when people take the test, they are able to remember some of the questions that they saw. You should have very good memory to do that. And then when they come, they'll contribute to the Savior document. So you can imagine over the years, if there are 100 people taking it every month, if every person is remembering even just 10 questions, that's how come they were able to make this document. It's a compilation of questions of people who have previously taken the test, and they have compiled all these. And then if you are learning, obviously, like I said earlier, these questions are recycled, so you're likely to come across some of the questions. Just that the USMLE exam, they also introduce new questions every now and then. So there are new questions that will be discovered that probably is not on the Savior document. But most of these questions on this 1,000 pages document are questions that are indeed among the pool of questions that the USMLE usually recycle. And apparently every question has a shelf life. So let's say this question has been there for, let's say, 4 months, and they decide to take it off and maybe they'll rephrase it or whatever. But that is how it works, right? And this system works for many other exams. Passing your life in a UK test, if you watch my video, I told you that they keep recycling the questions. Even passing your driving test as well in the UK, your theory as well, they recycle the questions. So it's almost the same. So somebody will say that, are they really wrong? So the thing is, before you go into the exam center for such an exam, you are asked to sign a non-disclosure whatever. So you sign that you're not going to disclose. Okay, so one, they have breached this, because if you ever contributed to the savior document, that means you have breached this agreement that you signed, because you did disclose some of the content of the exam. So that is wrong. And another thing is that obviously they want to test your knowledge, that if you should see somebody who is sick in the US or you're treating patients, you'll be able to apply the knowledge that you learned in medical school. But this is the case whereby it's like you're memorizing questions or you're memorizing answers. And the strangest thing that happened was that when they compared the scores of these test takers in Nepal, they realized that they were all getting the same questions right and the same questions wrong. Almost all these 800 plus, 800 is a huge number. And for some funny reason, they were also getting the new questions that had just been introduced wrong. So that means that ordinarily, you may not have been even able to pass other questions if you had not seen them earlier, because the ones that were just introduced, you are failing them. And another important discovery is that they know that, like I said, it's a multiple choice question. So they have designed the questions to take you about 90 seconds to solve one question, because one, you have to read it and then you have to go through the multiple choice and see which one best answers the question. These people, when they checked the records and they did their investigations, were answering these questions in less than 20 seconds. Did you even finish reading the question? Because they said averagely it should take about 90 seconds to answer one question, but these people, like I said, were answering in 20 seconds or even less. So that raises a question mark. And they realized that with the new questions that were introduced and were not on the savior document, they were taking much longer. Meanwhile, they were getting those ones wrong. And if it was just a few people, fine. But 800 plus people, when they're seeing this similarity, the probability of that being a coincidence is 0.0001%. It's impossible that it's just a coincidence. So it's most likely that you all cheated. So now they have given them options. But before even I talk about the options, one foreign medical graduate from Nepal was bold enough, after the USMLE, they invalidated his results. This person was bold enough to sue them, took them to court. And there was a court in, I think, Washington, D.C. The judge ruled in favor of the USMLE. This person was saying that, why is it that only people from Nepal have been targeted and blah, 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 on the issue of racial and blah, blah, blah. However, the judge said that, no, this has nothing to do with where you're from. It's because the evidence is overwhelming. It's clear that something fishy was going on. So now this is what has happened. You can either retake the test or decide not to take the test and just live your life, or you could ask the NBME, the board, to reconsider and then look into yours again. But honestly, I don't think it's gonna go anywhere. The sad part is that there are people, apparently this has been going on for years, because I don't think 1,000-page document was compiled in a few months. This has been going on for years. And some of the people that actually have access to this document are already doctors in the US and are practicing, and some of them have been practicing for years. And now it's like, you got your license in a fraudulent means, so now it's like, no, they're going to lose their license. This is sad. But what do you really think? Because the thing is, after they had the anonymous tip, one of the investigators actually joined this WhatsApp group, so saw exactly what was happening in the WhatsApp group. And there are even some screenshots where they were thanking other people that had recently gone to pass and were sharing their questions. See, this thing can easily happen to anyone. I mean, imagine you're in a WhatsApp group, okay, and you're all preparing for NCLEX, for example, and this person is taking hairs on the 1st of January, and this person is taking hairs on the 3rd of January. The person who is taking hairs on the 1st of January is most likely coming to say, oh, for me, this is what I saw. I know that you might not see it, but this is what I saw, blah, blah, blah. And that is where you have breached the agreement or the non-disclosure agreement. And this can easily happen to anyone at all. So imagine there's an investigator who has sneaked into this group. Everybody who is on this WhatsApp group and has passed the exam will be found wanting. Let's be careful what we share on social media. Some people are also arguing that we have platforms or resources like UWorld and other things that also solve past questions. But that is different, because those ones, they were not compiled by people who had taken the test recently. They are just testing your knowledge on possible questions in the same, based on what you are expected to know. But it is not really exact questions that have been seen by a test taker. So those ones are a bit different. And these ones, like, you're just memorizing. Meanwhile, you might not really know how to deal with it. And if you should see a patient presenting such a condition or whatever, you may not really know exactly because you don't have the core knowledge or the basics about it. You just know the answer if it was asked in an exam. I don't know if I'm making sense. But guys, what do you really think? My lessons I have learned from this is that if you're in such a WhatsApp group where questions to major exams or licensing exams are being discussed, you have to be very, very careful, especially if previous test takers are contributing to it. You have to be very, very careful. The sad part is that now doctors from Nepal are going to be looked with a certain eye. Even those that genuinely passed and those that are genuinely intelligent are going to be found wanting. And now as well, it's going to make them look more into the other countries as well. There was Jordan mentioned, there was India mentioned, and then there was Pakistan. All of these people are going to be looked with a certain eye. And now it's going to make the NBME find another way on how they conduct the USMLE exam. Probably they'll change the questions more often, they'll make it more difficult, blah, blah, blah. And it can even affect all international or foreign trained medical students in general. What do you think? Is this really wrong? Because past questions in Ghana, we call it PASCO. It's been a thing of the past. I mean, in Ghana, there are actually shops where you can buy WAEC exams, past questions of WAEC exam. You buy 1990 to 19 whatever. So some people honestly genuinely do not see anything wrong with that. But what do you think? Is it really wrong? And do you think it's fair? Me, I think as being asked to retake their test and not being struck off immediately, I think it's okay. If you pass, you should be able to pass. Maybe they should give them a discount this time around because almost $3,000 is a lot of money for them to raise again to take, especially those that probably had already passed step 1, step 2, all the scores have been invalidated. What do you think?